Hey, Chad here. And today it's a little bit different video in a different spot. I'm in my car. I actually came to the park because what I was trying to do earlier just really wasn't flowing for me. So this is going to be an unedited video, unscripted video. And so we will see how it goes. Basically, anxiety is what I want to discuss today. Hopefully, this will be beneficial to you. If you don't struggle with anxiety or being concerned about the future, then you don't have to watch this video. You can bell and appreciate you clicking on it to begin with. But if you are at all concerned about the future and trying to figure out what part you should play in your future versus what part God plays, in your future, then this video hopefully will be helpful. So Israel attacked Iran, struck their nuclear weapons, basically. And so that just happened. And so, of course, that creates a bunch of uncertainty. So what happens? Should I continue to work on my business? Should I just pack it all up, go away? Do I need to find a bunker? Like, what do I do? But here's what I always come back to. Just focus on the things that you can control. Okay. And in general, control is more or less an illusion in my mind. There's very few things we can control. Like, we can't even control ourselves most of the time. Self-control is lacking in many of our lives. So if we can't control ourselves, we're definitely not going to be able to control anybody else or any other circumstance. So the way I like to think about this is if you have like three concentric circles, so outer circle, inside circle, and then a smaller circle all the way in the center, almost like a target, a bullseye. So in the outer circle, we'll just say that's everything God controls, right? So he controls everything in the outer circle. He controls everything from the outer to the inner. He controls it all. And so he can let, he doesn't make bad things happen, but he'll let bad things happen because we live in a fallen world. We decide to rebel. We decide to do things our own way. And so, he allows us to do so. And of course, there's just consequences for living in a fallen world, a world that has denied him and rebelled against him for millennial. But so that's things God controls when we obviously don't control that. And there's really zero reason to fret about it. The main thing is to try and focus on what it is that he wants us to do and try to be in his will and focus on that. But beyond that, if he's in control of it, there's no reason for us to fret over it or be anxious about it. Okay. Then you have the notion of what other people control, right? And so that could be, friends, family, it could be clients, it could be vendors, whoever. So these are things that other people control. And we have no say in that either. Now, obviously, we would like to think, even with our spouse or whatever, that maybe we have a little bit of control, but really, we don't really have control. Because in general, people are going to do what people want to do. And while you may be able to maneuver and try to get a few things handled your way or desired your way, you really don't have control over that. So is there a reason to be anxious about what you have no control over? Okay, so what can you control? Well, you can control inputs. Okay, you can control inputs, not outcomes even. So if you think about you're trying to hit a sales target, so trying to get 10 new sales this week or 100 new sales this month or whatever the case is. If you are doing that and that's your focus is the outcome, well, you can't control the outcome. You cannot control how many people are going to buy from you. But what you can control is the inputs. And you say, well, I know as a general rule, if I have a 10% conversion rate and I talk to 100 people, that 10 people will buy. And so if I'm trying to get 10, then I can, my goal, my focus is reaching out to 100 people, right? But that's an input. That's me reaching out to 100 people, and that's fine. That's what I can control. I control picking up the phone and calling 100 people. I can send an email to 100 people or have a video that gets 100 views or whatever the case is, right? The whole point is I can work on that input of reaching out to 100 people that might be interested in what I'm selling. Okay, great. So I can plan and act and do things to actually accomplish that input. Then I can look at the information. Okay, so I did this work, I did those inputs. What happened? Was it what I desired to happen, or was it not what I desired to happen? Okay. Based off the outcome, is there something I could have done differently that would have produced a different outcome? Maybe, maybe not. But I'll take a look at that. Okay. So the whole point there, though, is focusing just on that inner circle and not worrying about anything else outside of that circle. So just what can I actually control and what's my next step? So it doesn't matter if the world's on fire. Doesn't matter if countries are going to war against countries. You know, the Bible says in the last days there'll be wars and rumors of wars. We definitely have plenty of those in the last several decades. But if you're just totally concerned about the world ending, you're not going to be a service to anybody else. So, but does that mean that we just kind of go with our head in the sand, if you will, and just ignore everything around us and say, well, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine? Well, not necessarily either. God is in control, but yet he's given us a brain and the ability to take action and do things. So we don't do things out of fear or in anxiety or worry, but we can make smart choices. So it's almost like having insurance, right? So you're going to have insurance. Do you have insurance because it's like, well, I don't trust God, therefore I need to have insurance because I trust insurance instead of trusting God? Well, not necessarily. There are some people that believe that, and I'm not going to fault them. I'm not suggesting that that's a terrible way to live. But I believe that's more about God's ultimately in control. But if he's given us mechanisms to have certain protections here, even without foolproof protections, because obviously insurance is not foolproof. A lot of times insurance doesn't even pay out or whatever the case is. Okay. But I can still put forth some work and plan ahead and get insurance. Great. Something happens, maybe insurance will cover it, maybe it doesn't. So ultimately, my reliance is on God. It's on him. It's not on my bank account. It's not on the number of orders I get in this week. It's not on any action that I actually do. It's actually on him. Because he's the one that's actually giving me the breath that I have right now that can go away at any second. He's the one that's given me the ability to do what I do. So that's great. But at any point, anything can change. Fortunately, I'm in a state, plenty of money, plenty of, good stuff in life from that perspective. But my hope, what's what I'm looking for? It's like, I don't put my trust in that, right? Because I know that tomorrow I could wake up and everything could be gone, right? So like, could have a fire in the house, lose a bunch of stuff, not necessarily everything, but the vast majority of stuff in a fire, right? Obviously, I don't want a fire to happen, right? And I try to protect and make sure we don't have fires. But just because you do that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a fire. Okay. So I can't trust in my wealth to keep me going. But I can't sit here and be scared and say, well, I got to get up more wealth, because if I got more wealth, then I'd be secure. Because that's not really the way it works either, right? Where do we find our security? We find it in God. He's the one that's in control, not us. And the faster you can grasp onto that, like the happier you'll be, like the more fulfilled you'll actually be. At least that's what I found in my life. So it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. It doesn't matter who's going to war with who. It doesn't matter if foreign troops show up on U.S. soil. Okay? Obviously, that could totally affect businesses and things of that nature. So that kind of brings us to, well, I'm going to wrap up this because I've definitely rambled on more than I was planning on. But what can we do? Okay. Just like having insurance. Well, we can say, well, maybe I should have some extra food on hand, right? Maybe I should have a generator. Maybe I should um, have some precious metals or something on hand. Like, who knows? So maybe I can have these things. And it's not because I'm an anxious, but I'm just trying to be prepared. Okay. It's just like having insurance. Because again, all that stuff could go away anyway. And you do all this work, all this fretting and accumulating stuff that you're trying to have in just in case, and it still may not work out. But I believe that's what we're called to do. That we're supposed to be diligent like the ant. That we're actually supposed to put forth effort and try. But not actually, that's where the say conflict comes in, because we're supposed to do that, but yet not have faith in that, right? So yes, I'm going to try to make sure I have a generator and food and whatever else, but my actual hope of protection and life doesn't come from those things, even if everything goes crazy off the walls, right? It comes from Him, it comes from God. And it's the same way I see it with our business. We work hard, we try to provide value the best we can, but we do that hopefully to bring in an income. But we don't do that so that we can just, oh, great, I've made it. I'm fully secure in the funds that I brought in by the sweat of my brow. That's no, because any funds that I brought in is not just because of the sweat of my brow or whatever skill sets. It's because God's actually made those opportunities available. Having that mindset also opens us up to actually be giving and help out others as well. So it's a kind of a long rant, much longer than I was expecting to be, as we're getting on 12 minutes here. But I just want to wrap it up with this. If your focus is on things of this world only, then you're not going to have a fulfilled life. It's just, I don't always talk about spiritual things on this channel. Sometimes I do. Obviously, I'm a Christian. You can watch my videos. If you're not a Christian, I hope you will. I hope you do. I hope you enjoy them, because I try to make them for everybody. But every once in a while, when you have something like this, the world's, or nations going to war against each other, it's time to kind of step back and think about what's actually important. Okay. And to me, the most important thing is my relationship with Christ. And I believe that everybody can have that relationship. Since I believe everybody can have that relationship, I'm not bashful about my faith. And I believe that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven because that's what He said. Since I believe that, I want others, obviously, to get to heaven. And it's not because of doing good or being a good person, right? It's actually about who you believe. It's just like life. It's like who you know. You think about people who have jobs and like, well, they have that job. They're not qualified. Well, it's because they knew the person that worked there, and so they got hired. Right? It's all about who you know. And for eternity, it's the same thing. It's about who you know. Do you know Christ or do you not? And if you don't, and you don't want to know Him, like, I would ask for you to reconsider. But again, I know I can't control you, and I'm not trying to control you. But to me, it's like I feel like I have the cure to cancer here. And if you have cancer, then you don't know Christ, then I want to tell you about this cure that I have and say, hey, it's here for the taking. All you have to do is take it. All you have to do is believe and let Him be Lord of your life instead of you trying to be Lord of your life. Because as I said originally, control is an illusion anyway. None of us have control. None of us do. And so you can just resign yourself that, well, okay, I don't believe in God and I don't have control, and so be it. Or you can resign yourself that I don't have control, but I have faith in somebody else that does have control. Right? So either way, definitely didn't mean to go on this long with this. Totally different type of video. But hopefully, regardless of what you think on the, I'll say religious side, I don't see Christianity, true Christianity, as religious. But it's all right. regardless on that front, if you are concerned about the current events, my suggestion to you is just focus on your life. Focus on what you control, okay? Which is really just you, your actions and your reactions. And you can definitely prepare for things. So again, if you need to fix a fence, get a generator, get some precious metals, do whatever for now or for the future, then definitely do that. But I would definitely advise against putting all your hope and trust in those things, whether it's your effort or these other things that you're trying to get to prepare. On the flip side, I definitely wouldn't necessarily say just go cavalier and say, well, everything's gonna be fine. I don't need to buy anything, don't need to do anything because God has it under control. It reminds me, I'll end on this story. There was a big flood that occurred, and the house was absolutely covered, and the person was up on the roof of their house, and a boat came by, and the person in the boat said, hey, jump in the boat. And they're like, nope, I'm not going to jump in the boat because God's going to save me. So they're begging the person to jump in the boat, but they're not going to, and they see other people, so they go and get the other people off their roof. Okay. Later on, floodwaters keep rising. Now it's up to the chimney, and the person's now standing on top of their chimney. Another boat comes by. Come jump in our boat. We don't want you to drown. So no, thank you, but no, God's going to save me. Okay. God's going to save me. Okay. They beg, no going. This person's not going to get off the chimney to get on the boat. That boat leaves, goes down and saves some other people. Water's all the way up past the chimney, slapping at the person's feet that's barely hanging on to the chimney at this point, barely standing on the chimney. Water's already on to that point. Death's imminent. Helicopter comes, lowers a ladder down, a rope ladder down, scream on the megaphone to grab a hold of the ladder, climb up to safety. And they say, no, God's going to save me. And they're standing there, and the water comes, they lose their footing, and they go into the water, and they drown. They go up to heaven, and they ask God, they said, God, why didn't you save me? God says, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter. What else did you want me to do? Obviously, it's a joke, obviously. But there's times when we're like, well, God will just take care of stuff. He'll just handle it all. And most of us as entrepreneurs don't have this problem, but some people do. Thinking, well, God's just going to handle it all. And he is, and he can, but he's not typically going to do what we can do. He expects us to do what we can do, and we have to rely on him to do what only he can do. So I hope this was an encouragement. Don't be anxious. Don't be worried. Focus on what you can control. Focus on today. Focus on your next step. Do that. There are things you need to get in order in your business or in your home in order to protect against, potential catastrophes, then by all means do so. But don't be burdened by what could happen or what might happen. Just think about it to the point to figure out what steps could I take to potentially protect myself, knowing that ultimate protection comes from God. Take those actions and then get on with the next thing. All right. I hope this was beneficial. And if you like this, maybe you'll like the next video. It's about focusing on inputs. I talked about inputs some in this video, so it's focusing on inputs versus outcomes. And so, that'll be here. So if you want to watch that, go for it. And I'll see you in the next video.